Breaking news today, friends. Cori Bush loves the smell of her own farts, and so does everybody around her. And why would I believe such a crazy thing? Well, it's because she believes that a pedophile contracting COVID 19 while in prison after having inappropriately touched an underage child, that is worse than that underage child being inappropriately touched by a pedophile. How could I believe such an outrageous thing? How can I make such an outrageous claim? It's because she said so herself, friends. A tweet from Cori Bush. Every person deserves to be protected from COVID 19. That includes our community members who are incarcerated. We need to decarcerate now to save lives. Translation. People in prison can die from COVID 19. As a polite society, we shouldn't allow people to die from COVID 19, so we should remove people from prisons. So, as long as there's a threat for them to die from COVID 19. That's disgusting. I can't say she's pro rape or pro pedophilia or pro neo fascistic white supremacists committing hate crimes against people of color like her or myself. I can't speak to that for certain, but I can say for certain she definitely believes that they shouldn't be punished for their actions. Because by claiming that they shouldn't be in jail, she's claiming that they shouldn't be punished. That's disgusting. So, again, I can't make the statement for sure that she's pro pedophile, but she's definitely not anti pedophile, and that is disgusting. She is not anti rape, she is not anti hate crime, she is not anti murder. So, as long as she doesn't believe that they should be punished for their actions, if you believe a rapist contracting COVID 19 is worse than a woman being raped by that rapist, you are an evil person, Cori Bush. So, why don't you clarify your statement? I've asked you multiple times to make clarifications upon your statement. Do you believe white supremacists should be released? Do you believe rapists should be released? Do you believe pedophiles should be released? Do you believe that all those groups of people, it's worse for them to contract COVID than their victims to have suffered the acts by those criminals? Her statement would say yes, but I would like clarification. I would like confirmation to either know that I'm correct, that she is not anti-rape or anti-pedophilia, and that way I can actually go out and say that she is pro-rape or pro-pedophilia. But until then, I can only say for certain she is not anti-rape. And for a sitting member of Congress to not be anti-rape, especially a female member of Congress, that is disgusting on so many levels. And the fact that this is encouraged by her fellow Democratic colleagues and by her constituents, most likely because they enjoy the smell of her farts, it's even more disgusting, and what would lead me to believe this is actually an act of evil, right? Not necessarily her ignorant comments, but her fellow lawmakers basically egging this on for pushing this narrative. It's disgusting. Cori Bush is not a lawyer, right? So she might say some things and not really understand the second or third order consequences. So I can't really say she's being evil, but I can definitely claim that she's being ignorant, because she's either being ignorant or evil. And what is the least problematic statement for me to say? It would be that she's an ignorant individual texting things that sound great on paper, until you get into the practice of said policies. But her fellow lawmakers, a lot of them are lawyers who would understand the implications, and they're not biting back. They're not fighting back. They're not saying, no, don't do this. They should be correcting this rhetoric. And as long as they're not correcting this rhetoric, while Cori Bush may not be pro-rape, her Democratic colleagues who are lawyers in the House of Representatives are definitely not anti-rape as well, or not anti-pedophilia. And that's disgusting for that to occur in the United States of America. Let's jump over to an article from Politico. How vaccine passports could go wrong. What if an app could take you back to normal life, or at least take you into a restaurant? It's not a time machine. It's tech companies like IBM, Microsoft, and the airport biometrics company Clear are working on apps and other technology to verify who's gotten a vaccine, a sort of passport back into crowded spaces or life more or less as we once knew it. The concept is also starting to percolate, I like that, with politicians, with New York City mayoral hopeful and techie Andrew Yang making it part of his platform. There could be a way for you to signify very quickly, this is my vaccination information, and this is the last time I was tested, as a way to provide folks that reassurance that when you enter that office building or restaurant or whatever it is, that they understand what your status is. Yang said in a press conference, arguing it could accelerate society's recovery from the disease. They talk about lessons learned from China. Basically, there's a lot of inconveniences from China, but there's also concerns for privacy and security with that information. But one of the more important sections, in my opinion, is this: fears of a black market. An inability to verify vaccine data could also lead to a black market in faked vaccinations. That's a known issue with other types of jabs needed to travel across some international borders. Any passport will have to be carefully designed to ensure it doesn't have more data than necessary to administer the program, he said. Not everyone may have access to a vaccine, at least in the short term, or a smartphone, making a program effectively mandating both tricky. And if the passport becomes, well, a pass into society, there are bound to be political consideration. This is important. Anti-vaxxers or vaccine hesitant people, which is half the country, and it's bipartisan vaccine hesitation. Republicans, because you'll have your anti-vaxxer or your religious crowd, and you'll have also individuals that go, no, this my body, my rights, right? And then you'll have people on the left basically having been gaslit by the mainstream media, and now President Biden, almost Freudian slip where I said President Harris, President Biden, Vice President Harris spent months and months and months saying that they wouldn't trust a vaccine produced by Donald Trump. Same thing with Andrew Cuomo in New York and Gavin Newsom in California, that they had to establish an independent panel of scientists to confirm the efficacy of the vaccine treatments and to ensure their safety. But once Trump lost the election, they said, oh, well, screw that. We have a vaccine now. We need as many of those vaccines as possible there, Mr. Trump. And apparently the gaslighting and the irony is just lost upon them. If mandated, is an intrusion into their personal freedoms. They're talking about the anti-vaxxers and vaccine hesitant people. This will bring issues from a simmer to a boil. And this person is absolutely correct. You have people that are feeling alienated. They're feeling like their civil rights are being taken away. Their civil liberties, their personal individual freedoms are being taken away due to these lockdowns, due to the restrictions placed, due to COVID. And now you're forcing medical treatments upon them, especially after you're having states like New York pushing for legislation where the state can mandate treatments and you cannot say no. That's disgusting. And it's going to lead to a civil war. You'll have people that go, no, enough is enough, government. Enough is enough. Finally, there's the science. The science. This is important. This is hilarious. I've been saying this for weeks. We know that the current crop of vaccines is effective against serious disease. That's true. I've been saying that. We are not yet sure they are a barrier against transmission, and leaving even a slight risk of a passport carrier transmitting the disease might not be a great idea as the virus rapidly mutates. So, the vaccines are less effective against these mutations. That is a fact. Vaccines are not to prevent spread of the COVID virus. At least there's no studies proving that. That's also another fact. The vaccine is merely an individual shield for COVID-19. So I don't understand the push for mass vaccination. It's not like the polio vaccine to where you stop the spread of polio, or the chickenpox vaccine where you block having received it, and if you don't receive it, then you can't spread it. COVID-19, you get the vaccine, you just get less sick, but you still get sick and you can still get others sick. People don't understand that. And the government, who keeps pushing this vaccination as some sort of cure into normal society again, is pushing a lie. They are pushing misinformation. They are not following the science, and that is disgusting. Let's jump to the Hill. U.S. ending Trump asylum deals with 3 Central American nations. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced Saturday that the U.S. will terminate asylum agreements with the Trump administration entered into, the asylum agreements the Trump administration entered into with 3 Central American nations. Under the Trump era policy, numerous asylum seekers looking for refuge at the U.S. Mexico border were required to first seek asylum in El Salvador, Guatemala, or Honduras. Why was that important? Why was that important for Trump to enact? Well, it's important because if you travel through 5 countries to then seek asylum in the United States, well, you could have sought out asylum in those 5 countries. Then you weren't seeking asylum; you were seeking migration, and you're using that the threat of whatever you're seeking asylum for as the excuse for that migration, right? So that was the Trump policy. That was the Trumpian logic behind it. If you were really concerned about your safety, you would have stopped in Mexico. You would have said, I need asylum. Please grant me asylum. Once Mexico said no, then come to the United States, right? And I don't feel like that's unreasonable. The U.S. has suspended and initiated the process to terminate the asylum cooperative agreements with the governments of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras as the first concrete steps on the path to a greater partnership and collaboration in the region laid out by President Biden, Blinken said in a statement. To be clear, these actions do not mean that the U.S. border is open. So he has to clarify his statement because he knows the implications. So, like I said earlier in the segment about Cori Bush, she may not understand the implications of her statement. This individual does understand the implications of his statement and still makes the statement anyway, but then has to say, well, this doesn't mean that the U.S. border is open. I'll tell you what else he says it doesn't mean. While we are committed to expanding legal pathways for protection and opportunity here in the region, the United States is a country with borders and laws that must be enforced. So while we are removing some barriers into entry into the United States, we still have rules and borders that must be enforced. Well, that's confusing. Why would you remove the laws then? Why would you make it easier for people to take advantage and game the system? Because that is gaming the system. I'm sorry. If you walk past 6 people handing you $10 and then you go straight to the person eventually who's handing out $1,000 bills and he says, well, why didn't you take $100 from those 10 people you walked by? You would have had $1,000. He's like, well, that would have been more work. It wouldn't have been as easy as if I would have just gotten that $1,000 up front. It's basically what's going on here. We are also committed to providing safe and orderly processing for all who arrive at our border. But those who attempt to migrate irregularly are putting themselves and their families at risk on what can be a very dangerous journey. So they understand that repealing this mandate essentially will increase irregular migration that puts individuals, families, children, women at risk. And that's disgusting because they know the consequences of their words, yet they are still saying it. They are still pushing this agenda. And one can only ask why. Again, one can't claim that somebody is evil when it is more easily explained that they're ignorant of their words, right? Of their actions. But they're not ignorant of their words and actions because they clearly state that what they're saying is, please don't take this as saying that we are wanting for you to migrate here. So this is basically just an evil statement because they know the consequences. Because they know the consequences so well, they have to come out and say it. That's the difference between Cori Bush and Antony Blinken. And it's disgusting. This is disgusting policy coming out from the Biden administration. I'm sorry for having said disgusting or disgusted so many times in this segment, but apparently we couldn't just sit around and watch the Super Bowl. We couldn't watch the GOAT of football curb stomp the Kansas City Chiefs. That was a pathetic performance by the Chiefs. An amazing performance by Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, which I happen to be a Buccaneers fan since I was about 8 years old when I had lived in Florida. So it is amazing that Tom Brady was able to turn around that organization. So I'm going to drop a couple more videos today, friends. Until next time, I'll see you then.